right, so we are here today in a Reba Place Development Corporation apartment that's owned by a tenant who recently moved in about April. And this apartment rents for about $900 a month. It's a 2-bedroom apartment. And we're sitting here today because you are going to MC the Taste of Evanston.
In July 14th. Yes.
So I wanted to find out from you why you agreed to do this, why you agreed to MC, why it's important to you.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'd like to invite all of your viewers to please come out on July 14th to the Taste of Evanston. You will not be disappointed. Oh my gosh, I ate my way through it last year, right? And it is for such a good cause. So why am I doing this? It's because of the cause. You know, homelessness is one of the most intrinsic problems we face as a nation, and Evanston is not immune. There was a time when you could go downtown and see very few homeless people. Today, as you traverse through Evanston, you will see homeless people. You see them panhandling, you see them sitting on the street, you see them looking for resources. You see them lined up at the food kitchens that the various churches offer. You see the lines going around the block. Connections for the Homeless and Reba Place Development Corporation are doing such critical work. We need more groups like them. And so the reason I am doing this is because I'm committed to the work that they're doing. I'm committed to helping those less fortunate. There, but for the grace of God, go I. That is the way I was raised, that is what I believe, and that is what I hope all of your viewers will understand.
And by coming to the Taste of Evanston, how are they going to be helping?
You're going to, first of all, enjoy yourself, and you're going to get to taste so many delectable offerings from restaurants and retailers throughout Evanston who have come together for this most amazing cause. You can, like me, start with dessert and then work your way to the main course, or you can, like a more sane person, work your way from the main course through dessert. But we have everything. How do you help? You buy your ticket. Buy your ticket. Buy your ticket, come out on a gorgeous summer day, mingle with your fellow Evanstonians, and that's what community is all about, right? So you get most of the benefit, and then those who need, those who are less advantaged than we, they get the help from your ticket sales.
I think that 28% of Evanstonians pay more than 30% of their income on housing. And most of the people who live in Evanston who pay that much are either low income or very low income. So how do we get the political will in Evanston to change that?
You know, I think that most of the time it ultimately comes down to education. You know, people are afraid of what they don't know, and people are afraid of what they don't have any concept or understanding of. So people who don't understand that there are people who perhaps live right next door to them, who are struggling to make the rent, who are struggling to make decisions between covering their rent and buying clothing for their children or medicine for the elderly, right? Or food or recreation for the children and the family. When people don't understand that this is your neighbor who comes out of the same apartment building you do every day, waves hi to you, smiles, you both go your separate way, you go to work without a care, perhaps, they go to work and try to figure out how they're going to buy their kids this, how they're going to pay for the medicine that needs a refill tomorrow, how they're going to pay that light bill before it gets turned off. And all of the things that this causes, the stress, the pressure, you know, all of this plays into many of the social issues that we're dealing with. It plays into domestic violence. It plays into child abuse. It plays into violence in general, youth violence, right? When we as Evanstonians understand that we're not talking about some unknown, we're not talking about something that is not discernible, we're talking about our neighbor. When we understand that, I think that we begin to understand that, affordable housing is not a dirty word. It reminds me, there have been several cases in Evanston. I've been here for over 25 years, and there's been several cases over the years that I remember. Groups were planning affordable housing developments, just an apartment building here, or purchasing a house here, turning it into 2 or 3 apartments. And there was always, not in my backyard, that NIMBY concept, right? Or not next door to me. Mm-hmm. But guess what? 25 years later, all of those always ended in nothing happened. It was not the end of the world. People moved in and they made a life for themselves, and they contributed their rich diversity to the rich fabric of Evanston. And that is what it boils down to.
In Evanston, housing security and homelessness affects the Black community and the Latinx community much more than anybody else.
Absolutely.
And there's been an enormous exodus of African Americans who are historic population in Evanston, and they can no longer afford to live here. And so their numbers are have decreased a lot. People come to Evanston for its diversity, and yet we're not making the decisions that would help keep our diversity here.
That is key. You're absolutely right. If we can't maintain the affordable housing stock, we cannot maintain our diversity. We lose what makes Evanston so desirable as a community. I raised a family here to live next door to every color in the rainbow, to go to school with every color in the rainbow, and to leave home knowing how to live in the world with others, respecting others, appreciating others. That's what we're going to lose in Evanston.
And have
lost so much of if we don't reverse this trend.
There are also people that we don't think about, who need affordable housing in Evanston.
Right.
Police officers, firefighters,
Right.
the elderly, people with disabilities, people who are retired.
Yes.
They also are struggling to stay in Evanston.
Exactly. We're talking about not only diversity in race, but diversity in age. We've got an age issue. The elderly are being priced out. When we talk about affordable housing, we're not talking about strangers. We're talking about that old lady or the old man or the widow or the one who raised their kids next to you, and you've known them and watched them age. And suddenly they've got to move. They've got to move because we're talking about the lack of affordable housing. This affects us all, folks.
Tomorrow at City Council, the City Council is going to vote to approving a resolution committing to ending structural racism and achieving racial equity. When you think about that, there's so many aspects to righting the wrongs of the past and achieving racial equity. But a huge part of that is housing and, getting rid of housing segregation and making housing affordable.
Yes.
And so I think that in a lot of ways, housing is really a foundation for so many other human needs and human rights. Once you have a roof over your head and once you have that stability, you can work on other things. You can feed your family. You can work on your own mental health or not have the stresses that lead to mental illness.
Right.
So I just wonder what you think about that resolution.
It is so important, and it is a monumental move, because across this nation, we cannot redress the wrongs of the past without acknowledging them and taking responsibility and ownership. And I think that is what has held us back as a nation for so long. The Chicago metropolitan region remains among the most segregated in the nation. And it is not limited to the city. It is Evanston. It is all of the metropolitan suburbs that are still entrenched in the relics of segregation. Therefore, for the city of Evanston to move forward and really, really address these issues, it must acknowledge them first and foremost, and it must take ownership and basically say, okay, we did this. We did this. Now what? So yes, I think it's very important. I've been very impressed that we are moving in this direction. My only concern is that too often we simply take ownership and then we pat ourselves on the back and we move on in the same vein in which we have operated. I would only hope that this city, in taking this monumental step, then continues on that path to redress the wrongs with opportunities such as increasing the affordable housing stock.
In the wording of the resolution, they say in an effort to keep Evanston being the most livable city. And it's a question because is Evanston the most livable city?
Is it still? Has it
ever been?
And who was it livable for?
Right. We are going to have to hold City Council accountable for the resolution and to practice what it is preaching.
That's absolutely true. I agree.
On my way here, I absolutely coincidentally was listening to On the Media, an NPR show, and they were interviewing Matthew Desmond, who wrote the book Evicted, which is all about evictions in Milwaukee.
Wow.
And he followed a lot of people who were evicted and what happened to them and the reasons for their evictions. And he mentioned that if you overlay a map of the Great Migration from the south to the north, you will find that it exactly matches housing segregation and affordable housing and not affordable housing.
Interesting.
Yeah. Is this what you would have expected an affordable housing unit to look like?
You know, Nina, I walked in and I was saying to someone, oh, this reminds me of back in the day when I lived in a walk-up after college, you know, in my early career, and trudging those stairs, you know, for years. And guess what? It reminded me of that because I walked up to the top floor into an apartment just like this. Beautiful, spacious. Look at this. I mean, you know, I think that too often those who are not in the know, those who have no concept of what affordable housing is or can be, or who needs affordable housing, tend to think, oh, they're going to build projects next door, you know. And you know, it's all of the stereotypes, all of the misconceptions, all of the myths, you know, all of the biases that come into play, when in reality, affordable housing is housing just like you and I live in. It is beautiful, it is this. So no, I am very familiar with affordable housing. Heck, when I first moved to Evanston, you know, I was fresh out of college. I needed affordable housing. I was trying to start my career. And so I ran around trying to find an apartment that was affordable. And guess what? Whenever the rent went up, I moved. That's the game that your neighbors and my neighbors still today play. Because they, unlike me perhaps, and unlike you perhaps, have not been able to escape that income bracket. And so therefore, when we do, we have to make a way for others. We have to. It's incumbent upon us. I've been down this road. I've lived in these apartments. I've struggled to find the next one that would be affordable when the rent went up. And we don't want that. We want to make sure that that housing stock is available.
As soon as somebody has affordable housing, all of a sudden what you notice or what you see, what studies have shown, is that suddenly their children get healthier because what they do is they are able to pay for a roof over their head and for that stability, and then to have the money left over. The first thing they do is invest in their children.
Yes.
And so it really plays toward a healthier population.
Exactly.
Kids then get fed, they stop being anemic,
Right.
and I mean,
stop acting out at school.
right.
All of those things. You know, it's amazing. Housing is the foundation. If we don't give our community that foundation, we give rise to all of those things we've just talked about. You know, hungry kids are angry kids. So think about the child that goes to school hungry because their parent had to pay the rent. So, you know, all of these things, we really need to think about the very basic foundations of a community. And it starts with housing. There's no getting around it.